You step outside with your morning coffee. The feeder is full. The yard looks exactly the same as yesterday. But something is already watching you. A small bird lands on the fence post, the same post it landed on last Tuesday. It tilts its head. Then it moves to the exact spot where your old hanging basket used to be, the basket you took down 3 weeks ago. But what is actually happening is far stranger than most people realize. That bird is not just visiting your yard. It is reading it, scanning it, comparing what it sees right now to a map it has been building inside its mind for months, maybe years. Stay until the end of this video because the last thing we cover will permanently change the way you look at every bird that lands in your yard. This is not about feeding schedules. This is about a level of memory and awareness that researchers are still struggling to fully explain. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hit subscribe. We release new videos every week about the hidden intelligence happening right outside your window. Tonight, we are talking about the birds in your yard that have memorized your space in ways science is only beginning to understand. By the end, you will never look at a perched bird the same way again. Stay with me. The last section is the one that matters most.
You have probably noticed it without naming it. A bird disappears for a few days, then returns and flies directly, no hesitation, to the exact feeder hook you moved 2 weeks ago. It hovers for just a second where the old spot was. Then it corrects, finds the new one. And you think, did it just remember where the feeder used to be? It did. Researchers at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology have studied how certain backyard species build what are called spatial cognitive maps, detailed, updatable mental blueprints of a physical environment. These are not vague impressions. They are precise. They include the location of food sources, perch heights, escape routes, and shelter points, and they are constantly being revised. The black-capped chickadee is one of the most studied examples of this. This small, familiar bird, the one you have probably seen dozens of times, has a hippocampus that actually grows larger in autumn, the season when memory demands are highest. Studies have shown that chickadees can remember the exact location of thousands of individual food caches hidden across their territory. Not approximate areas, exact spots. Now, think about what that means for your yard. Every time you move a feeder, add a new plant, or pull out a dead shrub, a chickadee visiting your space is updating its internal map in real time. Your yard is not just a food stop. It is a living document that certain birds are actively reading and rewriting every single day. The practical takeaway here is simple but powerful. Consistency matters more than variety. When you keep feeders in stable locations over months and seasons, you are not just making things convenient for yourself. You are allowing birds to build deeper, more accurate maps of your space, which means more return visits, more trust, and more species over time. But what comes next is something even most bird enthusiasts don't know. Here is something that might stop you mid-sip of that morning coffee. It is not just what is in your yard that birds are tracking. It is what is no longer there. Researchers at the University of Washington conducted studies on how urban birds respond to environmental change. What they found was striking. Species like the American robin and the song sparrow showed measurable behavioral hesitation, pausing, scanning, redirecting flight paths when familiar landmarks in a space were removed or altered. The birds were not confused by something new. They were responding to something gone. Your yard, to these birds, is a sequence of reliable reference points. That old fence post, the corner where the tall grass grows, the overgrown shrub near the back gate that you keep meaning to trim. These are not just scenery. They are navigation anchors. And when one disappears, birds notice, often within the first visit after the change.
The American robin is a perfect example to watch for this. Robins forage in a methodical grid pattern across lawns, and studies have shown They return to the same precise locations day after day, following a mental route they have established over multiple visits. When something disrupts that route, they pause, they recalculate, then they adapt and remap. What this means for you is genuinely useful. If you have ever done yard work and noticed fewer birds for a few days afterward, that is not coincidence. You temporarily disrupted their map. Give it time. The birds that know your yard will return, survey the changes, and update. The ones that trust your space the most will come back the fastest. And this is where it gets truly remarkable. You may have never thought of your yard as a security network, but the birds in it have. And they have been running that network quietly every single morning while you sipped your coffee on the other side of the glass. Certain backyard species do not just memorize your yard for their own benefit. They share that information actively with other birds. Researchers at the University of Montana studying mixed species foraging flocks found that birds like the black-capped chickadee produce distinct alarm calls that encode specific threat information, the size of a predator, whether it is moving or perched, and how immediate the danger is. Other species in your yard have learned to read those calls like a language.
The tufted titmouse takes this even further. Studies have shown this species acts as a sentinel, a lookout in backyard environments. It is often the first to detect a hawk and the first to broadcast that detection to every other species nearby. When a tufted titmouse goes silent in your yard, everything else goes silent too. That sudden quiet you have noticed on certain mornings, that is not nothing. That is the alarm system activating. Here is the practical piece. If you want to attract more species and keep them coming back, supporting titmice and chickadees is one of the highest value things you can do. They create a sense of safety that other birds follow. Sunflower seeds and small insects are their preferred foods. A yard with active titmice is a yard that other birds learn to trust. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part most people never hear about. This might feel a little unsettling at first, but once you understand it, it becomes one of the most meaningful things about sharing your yard with birds. They are not just mapping your yard, they are mapping you. Researchers at the University of Washington, in a now widely cited study, found that American crows can recognize and remember individual human faces. Birds that were handled and released held a grudge against the specific person who caught them for years afterward, scolding that individual on sight while ignoring others nearby. The National Audubon Society has since noted that several corvid and passerine species show similar, if less dramatic, patterns of human recognition in domestic settings. The blue jay is the bird most likely doing this in your yard right now. Blue jays are highly intelligent, socially complex birds with excellent visual memory. Studies have shown they can distinguish between humans who regularly fill feeders and those who do not. They respond differently to familiar versus unfamiliar people approaching the same feeder. To a blue jay, you are not just a giant background presence. You are a known individual with a track record. The practical takeaway here is deeply encouraging. Every time you step outside calmly, move slowly, and maintain your yard consistently, you are building a relationship, not just providing a service. Birds that recognize you as safe will bring others. They will stay longer. They will forage closer to the house. Your presence, over time, becomes part of their map. And the last thing we cover is the one that changes everything. There is one behavior that researchers almost did not believe when they first documented it. And it is the kind of thing that, once you know about it, you will start watching for every single time you walk outside. Some birds wait. Not in a passive, perched on a branch way. Actively, purposefully. Studies from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology on northern mockingbirds found that individual birds would delay foraging in a familiar territory when a known human presence, someone who regularly interacted with or fed the birds in that space, was absent for an extended period. When that person returned,
Foraging activity in those specific zones resumed within hours.
The northern mockingbird is one of the most spatially intelligent birds you can have in your yard. It memorizes not just physical landmarks, but behavioral routines, including yours. It knows roughly when you come outside. It knows which side of the yard you favor. It has cataloged your patterns the same way it has cataloged the location of every berry cluster and every reliable insect spot within its territory. Here is what makes this extraordinary. These birds are not dependent on you. They could survive without your feeder, your bird bath, your carefully planted native shrubs. But they choose to incorporate you into their map anyway. They choose to include you. That is not instinct running on autopilot. That is something closer to relationship. You were always more to them than you realized, and they have been waiting patiently, quietly, for you to realize it. Think back to that moment at the beginning. You with your coffee, the bird landing on the fence post, the small tilt of its head toward the spot where your old hanging basket used to be. You probably smiled at it, maybe felt a flicker of something you could not quite name. That flicker was real, and now you know why. That bird was not just passing through. It was holding a map of everything your yard has ever been and comparing it quietly and precisely to everything your yard is right now. The basket, the feeder, the shrub you trimmed, the gate you leave open on warm days. All of it. Filed, updated, remembered. Your ordinary yard has been extraordinary this whole time. Step back even further for a moment. Across every city, every suburb, every quiet street with a feeder hanging from a porch, there are hundreds of millions of birds doing exactly this: mapping, learning, watching, building invisible archives of human spaces that we walk through every day without ever knowing they exist. The world is layered with a level of awareness we are only beginning to measure. You were right to feel something when that bird looked at you. You were right to feel seen, because you were. You are not alone in this. Thousands of people watching this right now have felt that exact same quiet, inexplicable connection, and every single one of them was correct to trust it. The bird that memorized your yard did not do it by accident. It did it because your yard was worth remembering. And so, without question, were you. I want to hear from you in the comments right now. Tell me the most specific thing a bird in your yard has ever done that made you think, wait, it noticed that? The more specific, the better. If this video opens something up for you, share it with one person who feeds birds. They need to see this. I will see you in the next one.